it was always thinking I was going to go back to work. I mean, I had this mindset where I had to have a career. I have this degree. I have to contribute to my family. We need two incomes to have the money we need.
Hi guys, I'm your host Megan Van Diepender, and this is the Empowerhood podcast. I am so happy to have you here. You know, motherhood is hard, and we are going to talk about all of the hard things that just are not talked about enough. So buckle up and enjoy this episode. Hi, Holly.
Hi, good morning.
Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you. So everyone listening today, we have Holly Rodriguez here. Holly is my sister, my older sister, and a lifelong role model and inspiration to me. And today we're talking a little bit about redefining success as a stay-at-home mom, coming from a career aspect to staying home with your little ones. And Holly is the perfect one to talk to about this because she has done both. She has had the demanding career with children, and when circumstances changed for her family, she decided to stay home with her little ones. So we are going to talk through this whole transition and talk a little bit about Holly's experience with the whole entire thing. So Holly, before you jump into your story, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you? Who is Holly?
Sure. I'm Holly. I am married to my husband, Robert. We're just about 15 years in a couple weeks. Will be our anniversary. We have two little boys. One is just turned 8 and one is just turned 5. They are about to finish up preschool and second grade. So we're going to do a nice little preschool graduation on Friday with the cap and gown. Cue the tears. My husband is a football coach. He's coached in college and is currently coaching in the NFL. We live in Arizona right now. He's coaching for the Arizona Cardinals. And we have moved around a bit. That's the coaching lifestyle that we've had to get used to. And currently I'm staying home with my boys, but I am a licensed attorney in 4 states.
Okay. Now, how did, so when you had your first son, my nephew Caleb, now how did this all start? Were you working at the time, or did you plan to stay home with him from the beginning?
No, I wasn't planning to stay home with him from the beginning. I had my dream job at the time. I was working as an assistant district attorney. I had been there for about 6.5 years at that time. I was a rape and child abuse prosecutor, and it was my passion. It was what I went to law school to do. I loved doing it. It was a 8 to 5 job, so it was very easy to kind of just have my son. I took my paid maternity leave because I worked for a government entity. I had great maternity leave, paid sick leave. So I took my time off, went back to work. It was easy to put him into childcare a couple blocks away from the courthouse and drop him off and pick him up every day after work. Mm-hmm. It kind of went seamlessly. It's exhausting, obviously, to everybody that's a new parent, but it worked.
Mm-hmm. So you guys and you said your husband was a football coach. So where was he during this? Because I mean, I know as your sister, but you know, the audience needs to know, like, the first year of Caleb, your first son's life, where was your husband during this?
So we were living in El Paso, Texas. He was coaching at UTEP, which is the college we both went to. His whole entire family lives in El Paso. And I was actually pregnant with 2 of my sister-in-laws at the same time that lived in El Paso. We all had our babies within 3 months. So it was a really fun time. But 6 weeks before I gave birth to Caleb, my husband had an opportunity to start coaching in the NFL. It was in Minnesota, though, so pretty far away. He had to take the job immediately, but it was an opportunity that he could not pass up. So he took the job, and I stayed in El Paso because I had paid maternity leave, because we owned a house, and because all of his family was there. So I had a great support system. So I had the baby in El Paso, and I stayed there for almost the first 18 months of his life. That wasn't planned. We never thought it would take so long to sell our house. Right. It got to a point in my job where I was a few months away from vesting in a pension. And so we said, well, wait, now we need to stay to do that. So it turned out that the first 18 months of Caleb's life, I was a single mom in El Paso while my husband worked in Minnesota with the Vikings.
Right. I mean, I feel like you say it so casually, but like, you were a single mom, you had a demanding career. Luckily, you did have a lot of support, you said, right, in the area to help you when
Absolutely.
Your husband
I don't think I could
have
asked for more. My
Okay.
in-laws were there. My sister-in-laws were raising babies at the same time.
Right.
I had everything I needed.
Okay. I mean, you say that, but it was a lot, right? I mean, to be honest, right? It was a lot, right?
Oh, I didn't know any different. He was my first kid.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all exhausting. I don't think it matters whether your husband's there or not.
Well,
When you're the one nursing the baby and doing all the things, it's going to be tiring.
yeah, for sure. I mean, especially when they're that little, it's definitely, it's a lot for sure. Okay, so fast forward 18 months. So you were by yourself for 18 months. You finally decided to leave your job and move to Minnesota to be with your husband.
Yes. And
Okay.
I struggled to find a job in Minnesota, I guess, period, but definitely in the career that I wanted. I could not get another job as an assistant district attorney, county attorney, whatever they called it there. So I just took a job reviewing documents for a large law firm, which was miserable, but it paid the bills. Childcare was much, much more expensive in Minnesota than El Paso. I mean, the cost of living was just through the roof in Minnesota compared to Texas. But I thought, well, I paid all this money for a degree and I have to contribute to what my family needs, so I need a job. So I did that. I got another job about 8 months later in immigration law. Again, not what I wanted to do, but that job paid a lot better.
Okay.
By that time, I was pregnant with our second son. And when I was about 20 weeks pregnant with him, I got laid off. That firm just didn't have the money. It was a small firm. They didn't have the money to pay me anymore.
Okay.
So I was home for 20 weeks to have a baby, which I guess it timed out, right? If you're going to lose your job.
Right.
But it was stressful because we weren't bringing in any money, and you can't just pull Caleb out of childcare or you lose your spot.
Right.
So it was a stressful time period for us.
Okay. Now, what happened after you had your second son? Like, were you thinking that you were going to go back to work, or what was your plan, from there?
It was always thinking I was going to go back to work. I mean, I had this mindset where I had to have a career. I have this degree. I have to contribute to my family. We need 2 incomes to have the money we need. We look back on it now and realize if we had really sat down and done the math, I never made enough money to even cover their childcare in Minnesota.
But okay.
I had never really wanted to stay home with the kids, and so it just made sense to go get another job.
Right. It was just that wasn't a part of your plan to stay home, you're saying?
No, it had never been a part of our plan. So I finally did get another job at a law firm when Jesse was 7 months old.
Okay.
We were actually coming very close to a time period where a deadline that we had set for me to get a job, where if I couldn't get a job, we were going to have to pull the kids out of school and I would have to stay home with them. But I did get the job. It didn't pay much, but I was working for a family law firm that also did criminal defense. So a little bit more of what I had done before, but not really. I had fun. I worked with people that I liked. I didn't really enjoy family law. But then COVID hit.
Okay.
And I didn't have a choice but to stay home, obviously.
Right.
We were planning on moving. My husband had gotten another job, a better job. He was going back to college coaching, but it was a promotion. He was going from being an assistant to an actual position coach.
Okay.
So it was going to be a pay increase for him. And then COVID hit and I was stuck at home, but we also didn't have to pay for childcare, and we realized how much money we were saving.
Right.
And so when we moved from Minnesota to Arizona in the summer of 2020, I was in the process of being licensed in Arizona, but it was taking forever because of COVID.
Right.
So when we actually made the move, I couldn't work. I wasn't licensed here.
Okay. So you're saying it was like pretty much decided for you. So like COVID kind of made you stay home. You left the family law place, and then you guys moved and you couldn't work, at least not in law. You could not work in law.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So like, how did that feel for you? Like, did you just kind of like accept it felt right, or did you still feel like you needed to continue to look for work, or what were you feeling at the time?
The plan before COVID hit was always, I was going to get licensed here and look for work. I know that neither one of us, my husband or I, realized the enormity of what kids in school, their schedule looks like. Caleb was going into kindergarten in the fall of 2020. So our kids had always just been in childcare before.
Right.
But school is just a whole nother ballgame.
Right.
And so it always the plan to get a job here. But once school started, and obviously I couldn't work, And at the time, I didn't have a problem not working. I mean, it's COVID. You just kind of had to accept it.
Right. Yeah.
And if you didn't, you'd be even more miserable.
Right.
So I didn't have a problem staying home with them. When we moved here, it kind of seemed like the perfect time. I could get them into their school. We started Jesse, who was only 2, into a part-time preschool.
Okay.
Because he had been in childcare his whole life. So we said, well, let's at least get him in a couple days a week. And Caleb started kindergarten. Arizona was also more open than a lot of other states. So we signed Caleb up for hockey. He got to be on a little hockey team that fall. And then baseball came and he signed up for baseball. So we were busy.
Yeah. So you had to drive, you're saying you had to drive him to all this stuff, and yes. you needed to be there after school hours.
Well, yeah, I mean, we realized quickly that we were either going to have to pay childcare to pick him up, which some people do. You see the buses in the pickup line from the childcare facilities, or we're going to have to pay a nanny to pick the kids up from school. And his hockey practice started at 4:45 every Monday. I mean, even if I had worked a 8 to 5 job, how do I get him there? How do I pick him up at school at 3:30? And again, all the jobs that I wanted to work were not going to pay that much money.
Okay. I mean, did you ever in your life think you were going to not work a career and stay home with your kids? Like, did you ever have that thought in your mind that is where you would be right now?
No. Probably not until spring of 2021, when my husband and I sat down and just said, we need to evaluate this all. Do I want to get a job? Because I had just gotten licensed a few months prior. And when we really sat down and we crunched the numbers, and I just kind of sat back and I said, the kids are doing all these activities. I can't imagine paying somebody else to take my kid to baseball, or having someone else pick my son up from daycare and he runs to them to give them a hug. It didn't seem right.
It didn't feel right. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I mean, how has your perspective changed, since you've become a stay-at-home mom? Like, how do you feel? Did you have like a perspective before of what you thought stay-at-home mom would be like, or like, what do you feel now? Is it what you thought it was?
Part of it fits into the perspective I had before. Being a stay-at-home mom is hard. It's the hardest job I've ever had. I'm constantly doing something.
Yeah.
Everyone says, well, you have that time when they're in school. That time goes by so fast. By the time I finish dropping them off and drive all the way home, and then I have to clean the house, I have to prep meals, I have to make grocery lists, I have to run any errands that I need to do. You look at the time and it's like, oh, shoot.
Yeah.
I have to go pick them up already, and we're going straight to baseball or hockey or something. And it's crazy.
Yeah, no, I mean, motherhood is a 24/7 job. So, I mean, it's like whether you have a career or you stay home, you're juggling so much at one time. I mean, I work within the hours of my daughter being at school, and I totally understand what you're saying, like how it just goes by. I feel like I get her on the bus and, I do my work and whatnot, and then the day is done. I have to walk back to the bus and, get her off. I love being able to do that, but those hours, it's like 6 hours, it flies. I don't even know where the time goes. It's just gone. So, I mean, it's quick. So I see what you're saying. Like, you really have to be very productive to get everything done, whether you're working or not working, for sure. So, like, did it change, for you, like, when you weren't bringing in money for your family? Like, how did your perspective change during that? Like you said, you and your husband talked about finances and whatnot. Did you feel differently when you weren't contributing, like, from your own career?
I mean, there's still moments of frustration, especially when I pay the student loan bill every month.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's frustrating that I owe that much money on something that I'm not even using anymore.
Right.
I mean, I don't think that's my only source of frustration, because I mean, I get the division of responsibilities. My husband is bringing in enough money for us, and we're privileged enough that can happen.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
We also sit down there and realize that if I had been willing to give up my career years ago, we probably would have saved a lot of money in Minnesota.
Because of the childcare, you're saying?
Correct. The childcare was just so much money.
Yeah.
And when you're not making enough money with even my own salary to cover it, what's the point?
Right. Right. Well, I mean, I feel like a lot of people struggle with the childcare, because it is so expensive depending on what state you live in. And you really do have to make that choice. Like, should my child go to preschool, or should my child go to, a daycare, over me staying home? I mean, because I think a lot of people out there working careers are not making, like, their income isn't covering the childcare, or their whole income goes to the childcare. So you really have to decide, like, well, like you said, I mean, you thought motherhood was exactly what it was, right? Really, really hard staying home with your children 24/7, right? So you have to be that type of person to be able to do that, right? Instead of like separating yourself for your career, because it's incredibly hard. I think it really is the hardest job out there, to be home with your kids all the time.
And it can be incredibly isolating too. I think
Yes.
that especially for moms with much younger kids. I mean, I can't have imagined in Minnesota if I had been home with them when they were both little and
Yeah.
they're not involved in all these activities, because now I have my baseball mom friends and the
Right.
school mom friends and the hockey friends, and I get to go to almost an event every night and chat with the moms and hang out and stuff. But if you have kids that aren't involved in activities and they're just little, they're not there yet,
Yeah.
who do you socialize with? It's not there. It's isolating.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, I feel like, sports and all those activities really do give you that social interaction that you need. I mean, I feel like with little kids, you really have to find those groups, like the mom groups or library story time, like that type of stuff where you can go and still talk to adults and not just be home alone. I mean, obviously during COVID, like you said, it was hard, like, because you couldn't go anywhere. So, those little kids or the babies, the moms had no interactions unless it was like virtual, so that's so hard. So thank God, like, we've gotten past that. And, if people are staying home with their little babies, they can find groups. And I mean, I guess that's a good thing about the internet and social media. Now you really can find any type of mom group, to kind of meet up within your area. But yeah, it's so isolating, and not being able to talk to an adult, if you're by yourself all day, that's really hard. So, I mean, what would you recommend to moms out there right now trying to decide, like, what the right decision is? Like, should I go back to my career after maternity? Or should I stay home and save money, instead of putting my kid in childcare or preschool? Or maybe someone, pregnant, deciding like what they want to do after their maternity. Like, what would be your advice?
I mean, I would say you have to evaluate a few different things. One, I would say you're never going to regret choosing your child. But I think it's also what kind of job you're going back to. Are you going back to a job that you're passionate about? Because I had no problem going back to my job when I was in Texas because I loved it. It was what I had gone to school for. It was what I enjoyed doing every day. It was part of my purpose at the time. And obviously my other purpose became my child, but I felt that I could balance the two equally and provide what I needed to both of them and give them what they needed, the job and my baby. Obviously I didn't feel that same way after I had Jesse, just because I didn't love the job I was any of the jobs I had done, but I felt like I had to help provide for my family. So I think you need to sit there, and if you don't love the job that you do, then yeah, maybe you need to sit down with your spouse or your partner and evaluate what is feasible, because you also don't want to harm your family if your salary is something your family needs.
Right.
But,
some people might not have that choice too, I guess,
Right. But you do have to take in the childcare, because I mean, yeah, Minnesota was just insane. And I know there's a lot of other states that childcare is just crazy. Even the amount we pay for preschool here, it's cheaper than Minnesota, but it's a lot of money.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember that. Yeah, preschool was so expensive, and we did a nanny part-time when Gray was little, and it was still really expensive, but I felt grateful that I was able to, just work part-time and, spend the rest of the time with her. Yeah, no, I think that's great advice, because I mean, if it is your passion, even if it's paying the bills or not, maybe that's more, for your mental health as well. Like you said, you kind of have to keep your mental health, in advisement, because if you don't think you can, do the stay-at-home mom thing and, be home with your kids 24/7, maybe a job, keeping your job would be the best bet. I don't know if this happened for you, Hall, because you went back to work with Caleb right away, but like the first year of my daughter's life, like I could have stayed home. Like I just felt like the first year went, because there's so many changes and it went by so quickly, like I would have been totally fine not working that whole first year. But of course, careers don't really work that way, right? Like the career that I was in, if I had taken that much time off, I would have lost all my clients, right? So that didn't work for me. So I think it really depends on like what career or business you're in too. Like, I mean, I've known moms that have taken 6 weeks off. Like I still took my full maternity, 12 weeks, all that, even though I wasn't getting paid. But like my business, I couldn't leave it for that long to be able to do that. But if I had that choice and I could have taken the first year, because I think in Canada you get a whole year maternity after
I
you
think
have a
in
baby.
Europe you do too.
You do? Okay. Like that would have been just if, in a perfect world where you don't lose clients that quickly or whatever, I think the first year would have been amazing. Like, did you feel that with Caleb, or you were just like ready to go back?
I don't disagree with you. I definitely could have lived like gone the first year and stayed home with him. I was sad going back to work. I took 10 weeks. I could have taken 12, but I wanted to save sick leave in case I needed it for doctor's appointments or anything that came up.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did, because we did end up needing it. No, I definitely could have stayed home for a year. I wouldn't have had an issue with that. I felt like I needed to go back. I had like really big trials coming up.
Okay.
For some rapists, accused rapists, and murderers. So I felt like I would be letting down the families and victims that I was representing.
Really important
fighting
work.
for.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had become attached to as well. But no, it was not easy going back right away. It was sad.
I don't know if I've ever heard of a mom being like, oh, it's easy. Let me just go back to work,
No.
And I think it's the same goes for if you left your career and didn't go back too. You get to the end of your maternity and you talk to your partner and you're like, I don't want to go back. I think I should stay home. I think it's a really, really hard decision. I don't think it's easy either way.
No. And I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer either. I think it differs for everyone.
Yeah.
And sometimes maybe it is just a longer maternity leave that you need. Maybe it's not actually leaving.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that's true. I don't know. Maybe it would, if I had my perfect world and took a year off, maybe it would have been even harder to go back after a year. Maybe that's why they keep it, 12 weeks, which I know some people, like I know our sister-in-law they changed it to 5 months maternity in Boston.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So she got 5 months off with her third daughter. And I think it was really hard for her to go back to work. We would have to ask her. But I think the longer you're home, and you get to, like I said, the first year of life for a child, it's just like it's so many milestones, like so quickly. It's just amazing to just be there with them. But I don't have any regrets, of my decisions when my daughter was little. And I don't think you do either, right? You can't you can't really look back and regret that stuff, right? Like you make the decision and you go forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we can look back and say financially it would have benefited us for me to leave my career back in Minnesota. And if I had done that, sure, we would have saved a lot of money. But I think it would have been detrimental to my mental health at the time.
Right.
At that point, I was still hoping that I would get a job that I loved again, like I did in El Paso. Right. And I just kept trying to apply and saying, well, I'll only be at this job for a little while. And I think if someone would have just told me, well, you have to stay home, I don't think that would have made me very happy.
Yeah.
And my husband was always supportive. Like we actually never discussed staying home. I don't even know, that's just the prevalent mindset is, well, you both need to work. You both have really that you both need to work, period. But especially when you have a law degree, hey, you both need to work.
Right. Of course, like you said, you're still paying off your student loans. So, it feels kind of odd to have all these, major degrees that you're still paying for and not using them. But I would say that is a large majority in our, in our society that women and men probably have a lot of degrees that they're not using and they end up staying home with their kids. You got to think there's some very educated moms out there that are home, with their children that aren't using their degree. And I think that's, it's totally fine. Like you said, if that's what you really want and that's like your new purpose and passion. Yeah. So as a stay-at-home mom, like how has success changed for you? Like what is a successful day for you?
Getting the kids out of the house on time without screaming and yelling in the morning.
So like as a stay-at-home mom, success means keeping everybody in one piece, or what does it mean to you?
No, I guess just seeing the kids smile and have fun and tell me at the end of the night, Mom, I had a great day. I have pretty happy kids. The little one is a little fickle, but
he is not.
My oldest one is just, oh, Mom, I had the best day.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So, I guess that's the definition of success.
Right.
Hey, do they go to bed tired and happy every night?
Yeah. And what about you? What makes you happy now? Seeing them happy, or what makes you happy now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm waist deep in it right now of baseball and hockey and soccer and drum lessons and piano lessons, and yeah, we're just having fun. It's fun to watch them work hard at something and learn that when they work hard, they get better at it and they become
Right.
confident in it, and then they're proud of themselves. And yeah, it's fun. It all is fun.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And they are like such good, happy kids. I will say that. Even Jesse, he's just hilarious. But he's such a sweet kid. He really is. I'm trying to think if I had anything else. Oh, I remember what else I wanted to ask you. So like 5 to 10 years to now, like, do you consider going back to work sooner than that? Like, what do you want that career back, or what are your plans for the future?
I don't think I do want the career back. And not that I wouldn't love it. I know I would. If I could get back into an assistant district attorney position or county attorney, I know that I would love it. I loved being a trial attorney. I loved advocating for victims and their families. But I think that I got to do my dream job for almost 10 years. And I think I'm just going to end up looking back on it as a time period in my life where, hey, you had your dream job, but now it's time to move on. That was a different phase. I think I'll work again. I'm even looking into working remotely part time for a law firm in El Paso, just drafting documents for them starting in the fall. Jesse will be going into kindergarten in the fall.
Okay.
So they'll both be on the same schedule at the same school.
Okay.
And it gives me a little bit more time during the day. My husband has a new position as well. So there's a lot of charity work that I can do through the Cardinals that they're going to tell us more about soon, but they've already opened the door to that. I don't know how much work there'll be to do through there because I've also thought about volunteering at a domestic violence shelter or a sexual abuse survivor shelter since that was my expertise at the district attorney's office. So I definitely want to give back some way and use my degree in some way.
Yeah.
But I don't think that I'll go back at least anytime soon to working a full-time job. And my husband's very supportive of that. When we moved to Arizona, he just said, I don't want you going back to work a job that you hate. If you go back to work, I want it to be something that you love.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, who knows, Hall? Like, maybe it could be still within the law, but I mean, maybe it's a different passion, that comes up. Not exactly what you used to do, but something different and more exciting, and for where you were at now in your life instead of where you were before. Like you said, that was a different season, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I have to have it. There's just been some opportunities that have come open that okay, like I wouldn't mind working 20 hours a week and just throw the money at my student loans so I can get them paid down. That would be really nice.
Very true. Well, I mean, I feel like hearing you say that, though, like really shows me that you have found this new purpose, as a stay-at-home mom. And I think that's so important for people to hear about because I think sometimes you feel like lost a little bit when you go from having this career, that is so successful. You're so successful and you're defined by it to staying home with your kids. I think it's like a big transition. And like hearing you say that, you don't need that anymore and that you're happy, with your purpose as a mom, you're raising the next generation, right? It's so important and you're so comfortable in it now. So you've like really, I feel like transitioned into this role and you're truly happy.
I can't imagine anyone else being the one to pick up my kids, to take my kids to baseball, to, I get to be their team mom. I volunteered to be a room mom next year for kindergarten.
Yeah.
Those little things. I don't want anybody else to have to do that. And that's more important than any job that I could work or bring in money at.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree. I think that's really cool. And obviously you're always my inspiration. No, seriously though, I think everything that you've done and, just gradually kind of making your way to where you are today, and just feeling so comfortable in everything that you do and, really stand by your values and, what you do for your family. I think it's, whether you're in a career or not, it's a different contribution to your family and there's nothing else like it. You can't replace you, right? Like you are it for your family. No one else can do that for you. Like you said, I mean, someone else could pick up your kid, but you're still the mom and, your boys, you're the only mom for your boys, right? So
yeah,
that's really
and I think
important.
it also comes down to I knew what I wanted to do with my life when I went to law school, and I was getting to do it when I had Caleb. But when you're really confronted with why did we have kids? I didn't have kids to just pay somebody else to watch them. Like I had kids to spend time with them, to get to know them, to be there for them. And if I'm working this career, I just got to the point where what am I choosing? Am I choosing me or am I choosing them? It's different if you have to bring in money. But at this point, I didn't have to.
Right.
And so I felt like the more important thing is to choose them.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Do you feel like over the years, all these like lessons and different circumstances have, brought you to where you are today? Do you have any regrets?
No regrets. Not at all. I mean, there were tough times. Not all of it was easy.
Right.
But no, I mean, sometimes, even when my husband got the job offer to go to Minnesota, you're sitting there and you're just saying, this job offer is so incredible, but is this the worst possible timing ever?
I don't think you specified when he got this offer, you were like about to go into labor. Like,
yeah, it was 6
you
weeks
say
before.
Stuff very nonchalantly, and you're just like such a tough person that you don't like specify that you went into labor by yourself, and your husband had to fly on a plane to get back for the birth of your son.
Well, there's two ways you could go. You could either just take it in stride and take a breath and say, all right, this is what we're going to do. Or two, I could become hysterical and lose my mind.
Well, I think someone would probably be like, no, you're not going. But of course, it was a huge opportunity.
It was a huge opportunity. Yeah. We knew that in the long run, it was going to benefit all of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was something he could not turn down. It just really, we do look back on it. And even he says, he's like, was that the worst possible timing? We know that God works everything out. And if he hadn't taken that job, we wouldn't be here in Arizona right now.
Yeah.
It's crazy, all the connections you make just because of the few little decisions.
Oh, yeah. Everything happens for a reason. For sure. Even if you don't know what that reason is, like, while it's happening. I think you said something to me like, you plan and God laughs or something like that.
Yeah.
And I do truly believe that because, he has a plan for us, of course, and we can make our own plans. But ultimately, what's going to happen is going to happen. That's meant for us to happen. And yeah, if you look back, it's like all these little stepping stones of like, what brought you to where you are today. And hard things make us stronger, right? You've definitely done a lot of them, and yeah, I'm super proud of you for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add for listeners out there, Holly? Like any advice that you can give them?
I don't think so.
No? Stay true to yourself.
Follow your heart.
Follow your heart. Make plans.
Your mama instinct knows what's best.
Yeah, no, I do believe that too. Mom intuition, that's a real thing for sure.
Yeah. We call it mama magic over here. How did you know I was doing that? That's what they say to me. I'm like, mama magic.
Mama magic. All right. Well, thank you so much. I think I asked everything, but I really do think that, anybody out there listening, like whatever you're going to decide or need to decide for your family and your circumstances, it will be the right decision. And even if you make mistakes or go through hard times, it's all, going to work out for the better. You might not see it yet, but in the future, it will all work out. So I hope this helps. Thank you guys for listening. Holly, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, everyone. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Empowerhood is brought to you by Flourish Everyday Coaching. Check them out in the link below. And again, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. If you could take 60 seconds of your time and leave us an Apple review, this helps share the news about this podcast and help women all over the world. If you want to see the video version of this podcast, you can go to our YouTube channel and subscribe there. Thank you so much, and we'll see you at the next episode.